Upgrades.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Jorge and Mike over here, and we just finished seeing Vox Machina Season 2, Episode 8, called Echo Tree. So, Mike, I'll just start it off with you. What did you think about this episode?
Man, just straight emotional damage. Like, nothing hits like family drama, dude. At least for me.
No, I think this is it's interesting because this one kind of ends with a lot of little action, but in the beginning it's just more of a I think emotional damage is the best way to put it, because it's just basically Vax and Vox going back to their home and dealing with their dad and having all those like daddy issues kind of come to life. This episode did bring a lot of cool stuff, though, I will say. So, like, starting from the beginning, when obviously they make it there, they go and try to sneak in through the town, and when they finally, I guess the first part of the team of Vox Machina, when they get caught by the guards, they basically ask to see kind of like the head elf, who's their dad.
Yeah.
And then which I think is kind of neat, they found out that they have a sister, like a stepsister, which I thought was kind of cool. And, even though she was only in this episode for a few minutes, I think she brought a lot of cool comedy to it, especially near the end.
Yeah.
But how do you think that will affect either of them, knowing that they have basically a sister now?
I think it will at least give them a reason to kind of care about elven culture.
Okay.
Because I think prior to that, elven society had largely rejected them because they are, half elves.
Yeah.
And their father largely reinforcing those feelings almost aggressively. I actually thought that the sister at first, I know they eventually came to or they almost instantly took to her because she's innocent in all of this.
Yeah.
But you can't help feel oh, your dad replaced you guys with a full-blood elf. And so for me, seeing that, and then particularly seeing Vex interact with her, it had, because it's also a daughter, so this was the daughter that he always wanted, and so it was a gut punch, but the grace with which she accepts her half-sister, and that Vax instantly also accepts her and already starts with almost kind of that sibling ribbing and joking around with her, oh, Dad said that you wouldn't ever come back, and he's well, how could we meet you if we didn't come back? That kind of stuff. That's the good stuff. I loved that. And then we get to see Dad come in and why are you here? And it's
well, I think the timing of it, where his new wife is oh, your dad's gonna be so pleased to see you. I literally was why are you here? Coming out, and I'm oh. I'm come on.
The dynamic of the stepmom also perfect. It's very clearly I like you. I'm just trying to smooth things over.
Yeah. No, and I think it's really neat how when they all go to obviously his chambers, and I think it was Percy who was touching the wood bookcase or something, and he's oh, only the best for your dad type of stuff. But I found it interesting how her dad basically didn't give two craps about what anything that they were saying, almost until Percy introduced himself as basically the Lord of
Whitestone.
Yeah, I was gonna say White Tower, but I knew that wasn't it. and I think that was an interesting approach. But then you kind of still see the dynamics between, like father daughter type of thing, where no matter what she does, it's like she'll never be good enough,
Yeah.
basically. And then
I thought it was a pretty baller move for Percy to just randomly hand out a title
yeah,
to her.
well, that's what I was gonna get into that. So, basically they talk about having to find this arrow, or not arrow, but bow. And it was interesting because the dad leaves and gives him kind of like safe passage. And Percy just like dropping knowledge, and it's like, you're gonna have to change this, blah blah blah. And I found it to be, I guess I'm trying to understand if this is still Percy feeling bad for killing her, or if Percy truly does like her at this point, because he's definitely he's definitely going above and beyond more things, and little things like giving the title, like that's something he didn't have to do at all. But just
Porque
him,
no los dos, though. Like it can be both,
yeah,
right? Um, obviously, I think even before Vex dies, there's like a little bit of like playful flirting. Obviously, more on Vex's side,
yeah,
than Percy, because Percy's a little bit of a stuffed shirt. But when it happens, like after the death, he feels a little bit more responsible. And then I think even more so, like there's like that whatever emotional tie he had to her is a little bit stronger, because he feels, I don't know, indebted to her, responsible for her, but it kind of magnifies whatever feelings he had before.
yeah. No, and I find it I guess I just find it interesting, like seeing that relationship keep building. And it's almost as I don't want to say that Vax is, or Vax is kind of just like getting thrown to the side, but it's almost like he's focused on other priorities now in a weird way. Like,
Yes.
still has his sister number one, but it's like he's slowly, in a weird way, accepting Percy, like understanding that this is kind of like where it's gonna go. So I kind of, it's interesting to see the dynamic of those three, even like in action and all that, just kind of how they bounce off each other.
Percy has also been shown to like kind of resent the aristocracy, also resent like pretension.
Yeah.
And so like Vex's dad kind of embodies both of those things. And so him like kind of utilizing, Vex's dad's kind of like social stature and the way that he plays into all of those the rules of court, etc.
Yeah.
And being like, well, you have to respect your daughter now because she's a titled woman.
Mm-hmm.
And the dad just firing back, like, that's incredibly transparent, and that's beneath you, which again is like this like even more elevated pretension of being like, you're just throwing around titles to fucking help out my daughter, so no.
Yeah. No, and I think that's going to be an interesting part. And then we'll kind of break here, because after this, obviously, it goes into like tons of action. But we go also always to Scandalin, Pike, and then Grog. Poor Grog, man. How they reach this house, they knock, and it ends up being, was it Pike's great grandfather? Was that what it was? Was it two greats or three? Yeah, but it ends up being that, and you kind of end up seeing. So he kind of recognizes Pike immediately and all this, and he also recognizes Grog, which I thought was a cool thing. So it's one of those things where obviously Pike has had to bring him around before, which explains kind of, I guess, for me, just that little interaction explained how close Pike and Grog really are. I guess kind of like friendship wise, but
it's kind of good show don't tell kind of stuff. Yeah, it's very good.
So they go in there, and obviously we get the pill moment where
so good.
He creates this giant pill, which I think the pill was I guess is going, or was supposed to give him back his strength. And they were cracking up because they're like, how are we gonna, like, how's he gonna swallow that? And he's like, well, it's not going down his throat.
Yeah.
Of course,
I mean, it's an enormous pill. Like, it's the
yeah.
size of like a football.
Yes. And then you have Scandal, and like, oh god, that
Scalen's just like, oh, I know how to work both ends, so let
yeah.
me take care of this for you, Pike.
But I think the part that's like crazy. So obviously he tells Pike, the grandfather tells Pike not to look, and she turns around. But the way that they do the shot, it's like you see Pike's face, and right where like Grog's butt should be. I think it's just the so easiness that Scanlon just kind of grabs his like back part of his pants, lifts it up, and it just
crams it in there.
Shoves this whole thing in there. That's
no ceremony at all.
I thought like when that happened, instantly like Grog was either gonna get big and like punch Scanlon or something was gonna happen, but you just see Grog just hurting a little bit, which I thought was hilarious. But you kind of
great great grandfather explains that the medication wasn't necessarily to give him back his strength, but it removed whatever corruption that had caused the weakening, and that he needs to somehow stimulate his muscles and they will respond eventually. So it looks like he's not gonna be able to rage out and get all like Goliath barbarian until probably some big emotional moment later.
But he did say, because I know when he tried to rage in front of her grandfather, and he was like, oh, a muscle sore. So he is getting muscles, even though they may be tiny, but he is getting some, which I think is hope from that side.
There's also a little Easter egg in that moment too, because he like stands up, he's like, I would like to rage, which is exactly what Travis says like every turn before he rages.
Oh,
rage.
I did not know. Okay, so once again, another tie-in. I love it.
Yeah.
So then from there, kind of, I guess that kind of almost ends up the Grog, Scandalin, and Pike type of story. It was very short for them on this episode, which almost makes me feel, because it was so full of the other team, that the next episode is just going to be just Grog, Pike, and Scandalin, which will be fun because I think that duo is cool, and especially now that Grog is just tiny, I appreciate that. But
Tiny Grog is a really fun meme, I think.
Yeah, but from here you also go, we go back to the larger team. They end up, kind of finding where they need to go, and instantly Vex gets, I would say, almost hypnotized. Would that be the best way to do it?
Yeah, there's like some kind of like innate charm to the area, so she's definitely like under some kind of enchantment by the time like she reaches like whatever weird tree that is. The Echo tree, apparently.
Yes. So we get to see tons of cool stuff here. So she obviously she reaches the Echo tree. She ends up meeting, I guess, some guy in there who almost looks like he's part of the tree. Like the tree is just kind of like moving him.
Carmelie tells them that like the tree not only houses the bow, but also a powerful archfey.
Okay, because I wasn't understanding his role, because to me he seemed just like an evil dude, almost like in a way. For me, it felt like she was battling her own demons with him. But you get into this really cool, like intense, like fighting scene. But it starts off basically, this guy completely has control over her. Like her eyes are completely black and all this. But then it's almost like he triggers her by saying like, all I need is your heart. And they're like inches apart. And instantly she just kind of like snaps out of it. And this was the part where I was like, oh, Percy's got a chance. Because, oh, my heart is...
You're telling me I got a chance.
Yeah. So, and obviously they're split up. So as soon as this fight starts happening, you kind of get two fights at once, which is you get Percy, Vex, and Keyleth. Basically a wall appears and these tree people, I don't know what the correct terminology is, pop up.
It's probably in D&D. It's probably a tree ant.
Okay, so these these giant tree people pop up, and I know like that the Vex battle was good, but I thought this battle was so dope for the simple fact that Keyleth like goes Power Ranger and like morphs on them, which is awesome. So they start fighting this tree, and immediately like Vax throws like one of his blades and it cuts the tree, but then you see the tree almost like regenerate and does nothing to it. So Keyleth being Keyleth now, who is awesome, who she's gone up on my list a lot with this new power. So she's basically like, just stall him for a little bit. I'll take care of this. And you see both of them trying to like fight the tree and all this. And she's just, and I don't know what it would be. I guess that's more of a concentration spell would be the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's kind of just concentrating on this. The tree starts like kind of like whooping both of them up. They throw Percy and Vex, and right before they hit him, like she just and I don't know what is this called? Like she becomes like the fire elementor, like
yeah, she becomes a fire elemental. Like we saw it on the elemental plane of fire.
Yeah,
when she like destroyed all of those drakes and stuff like that. It was a much larger version of that, but like we see her turn into that. I'm not sure. I don't play a lot of druids, so I don't know if there's like a turn into it, like a wild shape into elemental kind of thing. So there might be some artistic license there. I know that you can summon an elemental, and so maybe that's their version of doing that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so that was still a really cool part of the fight, I thought.
Yeah, no, because once she becomes that, it's almost like, I mean, what's easier to kill, wood than fire? And
exactly.
Well, and I think the other part that I thought was cool was she was using her teleporting ability, like if she sees a tree type of stuff.
Yeah, that was dope.
Which I was just like, yo, that's awesome. Which just being able to combine both those abilities, like, it's so crazy. Like
I feel like a dummy because like in my head I was like, oh my god, I've never thought about using tree stride on a tree ant.
Yeah. But it's like, it's so cool the way that they and for me it's like, as soon as I saw kind of like that green bubble forming inside the tree, I was just like, oh no, she's not. Like,
yeah,
doubling it up, which was just super duper cool. So
I definitely like covered my mouth. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. So she ends up defeating these two things. The one thing that I guess kind of is interesting to me is when she forms back to, I guess, Keyleth, is she just exhausted naturally because that's taking up a lot of her energy, or is that just the show just putting?
That's just the show. I don't think that gives you any levels of exhaustion. Usually, the only things that do that, mechanically speaking, are usually related to barbarians and raging.
Okay, all right, cool. Yeah, because I was seeing that and I was kind of like, oh, I'm like, so now she's gonna have to like pick and choose when to use that.
Yeah.
So that obviously ends that part of the battle, but you start seeing, you go to the other side of the battle where it's almost like poor Vex is just like parkouring through this whole like tree forest type of thing that she's in, almost puzzle. The neat thing that I thought was she's actually hitting the guy that's throwing the bow and arrows, which I thought was really spectacular. But what I found neat, and I don't know if it's the guy's power or if it's the actual bow's power, but he was basically creating arrows like out of nothing, but they were changing into whatever he wanted them to be, because he had an explosion one, he had a lightning one. Is that the bow's energy, or like bow's power, or is that his power?
So in the game, I don't remember it having that elemental power. I do. There is one shot that he does where he shoots, and then like where it hits, like a huge bramble of thorns extends out.
Yes.
I feel like that is something that the bow does, but like I'm not sure about the elemental shots.
Okay, yeah, because one thing that I found kind of neat was like he was grabbing the bow, but whenever he was like pulling back on it, it's almost like he was.
You'd see like shadow form into the bow.
Yeah, which I
Yeah, that
thought
was really cool.
was a neat little like twist to it. But you see, you know, like at one point, Vex just kind of I guess she loses all her arrows, and then he throws like the lightning one, and she ends up kind of like falling, hitting a couple of trees. But here's, you know, like when he gets up to her to like, I guess for better lack of terms, finish the job, she ends up pulling like an arrowhead and just straight up
Yeah,
demolish.
this is the arrowhead that Percy had made for her. It was like a mechanical arrowhead that I don't know how you trigger it, but it would like transform, and it would like I guess it would enter a thing where I guess it would like add additional damage by like spreading out a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, it was neat because as soon as she put it in, you almost see it like open up.
Yeah, you saw it open up and like open the wound a little bit further.
Yeah, which that was kind of cool. But as soon as that happens, what I found what's kind of neat is you almost see the disconnection between, I guess, the whole forest and this guy.
Yeah.
And it's almost like if he just melts in front of her, you know?
Yeah.
But with that happening, she ends up picking up the bow, which now means that they have quite a couple of the vestiges. Yeah, because they have
Myth Carver, they have the Deathwalker Shroud, and they've got this bow.
Yeah. So they have 3. And then this from there it kind of goes back.
They leave the tree, and Garmelie is waiting for them.
Yes, and he's just kind of like chuckling. That was something I was going to ask you about, because that one completely tripped me out and confused me. So Garmelian basically opens up a portal, lets them kind of like, you know, go back to, they were going to Tal'Dorei, right?
He thanks them because he's like, I have not been so entertained in so long. You guys have given me drama, action, hilarity. Like, he's just like, I mean, he's us at this point because we're like, yeah, same. And so he's like, so in exchange, I'm going to send you back to Tal'Dorei, you know? We also see that, like, because as they were leaving Singorn, Vex's dad was like, well, you know, if you bring back the bow, maybe I will give you the welcome you think you deserve.
Yeah.
And so Percy's like, should we go back to Singorn? And Vex is like, I don't need to. I don't think I'm ready to go back yet.
Yeah.
And so Garmelie is the one who's like, yeah, just go on through this portal then. You don't need to do that. And after they leave, we see him change shape. He goes from like a kind of like a little tubby satyr to kind of like a really tall archfey with like long red hair and like these super long elf ears.
Yes.
And he like wishes them well, but without them hearing it or seeing him. And like that is like a big Easter egg. I wonder why they didn't handle it the same. Well, obviously, like this arc is actually, of the things that I've seen so far in Vox Machina, for me, I think this one is the most altered from the campaign.
Oh, okay.
Because I believe the entire party goes to the Feywild in the campaign.
Oh.
Additionally, Garmelie reveals himself like to them after they defeat the Archfey as another Archfey. He's like, apparently this entire time he was like the opposing force to the thing in the tree.
Oh.
And
that makes more sense then.
Yeah. His name is Artagan, and he plays like a role later in a later campaign.
Okay. Okay, this is okay. See, I will say, like, this whole series does such a good job at dropping nuggets that make you kind of like go back to it. Like simple stuff like, you know, with I think it was what, like episode 2 or 3, where the blacksmith and Percy, and he's like, oh, you're the second person who's bought this. And it's just like little callbacks where you're like, wait a minute. Yeah, because I thought his character like changing after they go through the portal. I was like, whoa, like this dude has to be important. So I hope he is. This is okay. So that
as we approach, because we're on episode 8 now, we've got the very last thing that they do, however, in the episode is they cut back to Grog, Scanlan, and Pike, and they do the whole like rage thing. He can't rage, but then Pike says, "Okay, well, I thought we would be able to take care of this now, but like maybe we can't wait. So maybe the best thing to do is go to Western." And Grog shows that he's nervous about that. And she's like, "Why are you so nervous about that?" And he's like, "Well, if you say those gauntlets are in Western, I know who's wearing those gauntlets.
Yeah.
My uncle wore those gauntlets when he killed me." And I was like, "Killed you? Whoa!"
Yeah, that was the part that threw me off, because I'm like, because Grog's not like an undead, or at
No,
least
he's not.
Yeah, so that part is just interesting. So I'm super stoked to see what happens in the next episode, because obviously I think that's the final piece to the puzzle, right?
What Grog is referring to, and what you even referred to at the very beginning of this talk about how her great-great-grandfather recognizing Grog indicates that he's seen Grog before.
Yeah.
Like all of that plays heavily into Pike and Grog's shared backstory that I think exists pre-campaign. Like they just like made it up, like this is how we got together kind of thing.
Okay.
And like, so hopefully my hope is in the next episode, we will get a flashback to like all of the everything that they're referencing in that little bit.
Okay. Yeah, no, that would be cool then. Yeah. Cause I think there's a very like nice comfort that you kind of saw with the three of them. And obviously Scanlan's there. Scanlan, I think, can just fit anywhere with the way he is. But there was just there was a unique like, oh, like you've grown so much type of stuff. And then when he saw Grog, it was like they've spent time together type of stuff. Like it's not just a rando friend or something like that. So yeah, so that kind of ends this one. What I guess this episode wasn't as like jam-packed crazy as the others, but I really enjoyed this episode still.
I mean, just like the emotional gut punches on this were worth it alone for me.
Yeah.
And again, seeing Keyleth kind of come into her own is very satisfying as well.
Yeah.
And then also, I obviously I love the idea of Vex finally breaking through all of these pent up issues she has about not being recognized by her father.
Yeah. It's almost like you're getting these characters are almost like maturing into like
Absolutely.
what they need to be. And it's interesting because I'm kind of thinking about it. So Grog, I guess, obviously needs the final thing, which was like the gauntlet. So if he gets that, every single member basically will have some type of superpower per se, except for Percy
and Pike. Technically, Keyleth doesn't have a vestige yet either.
But she has that like fire. I kind of give that to her.
You're not wrong. There's a lot of stuff to come. So the other thing that's kind of like bothering me, not bothering me, but like something that is becoming increasingly more something that I am aware of is how few episodes we have left before we reach 12. And I am going to guess at this point that the Chroma Conclave thing isn't wrapped by the end of this season.
I mean,
because we have 3 dragons left and 4 episodes. unless they're gonna go at it super ham, and then we get Grog taking care of stuff in the next episode, one of the dragons, and then one of the dragons for the last remaining episodes. That's gonna be intense.
Yeah. Well,
because like we have Umbrasyl, we have oh man, I can't remember the name. The green one, the white one, and the red one. So we have more dragons than episodes left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like the way that they've been working things, I think the big bad of this season that they're gonna have to deal with is Umbrasyl, the black dragon.
That's the poison dragon.
That's the acid dragon.
Acid. Okay.
Yeah. We have not seen the poison dragon since the first or second episode, I feel like.
Yeah, because well, it's weird. We've seen the acid dragon quite a few times. The white dragon, I think we've only seen once.
Yeah.
And then the acid dragon we've seen, I think, two or three times max, but just like little bit. And then obviously red dragon we've seen a lot. So yeah, that's a lot to cram into the final few episodes here. So
yeah,
this will be interesting. All right. Well, shoot, I'm not gonna hold this up, and we can definitely start.
We're also headed into episode 9, which, like, I mean, episode 3, someone died. Episode 6, someone almost dies.
Oh crap! I didn't even put that to.
So I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna continue that trend, but we'll see.
I hope not. I can't take
it. My heart can't take it.
With these little cliffhangers that they give us. But all right, well, cool then, guys. Then yeah, as always, this is Jorge and Mike, and we will definitely be back here for episode 9 to give you a quick breakdown. But this was episode 8. Let us know what you guys thought. As always, like, subscribe, drop a comment down below. But yeah, guys, we will definitely see you here in the next episode. Peace.